I never imagined that my life could take such a dramatic turn, leading me to question every certainty I had built over time. My name is Julia, and I am 47 years old. I have always believed that I am a faithful and devoted wife to Alessio, my husband of over 20 years. Together, we have raised a wonderful family with 2 adult daughters. I felt peaceful, satisfied. But everything changed when my nephew Matteo, my sister's son, moved to our house to attend university in the city. Matteo is 24 years old and is a charming young man, with an athletic physique and extraordinary intelligence. Initially, I welcomed it with enthusiasm, almost with a sense of protection of a second mother. I was happy to offer him a point of reference in this new phase of his life, but as time passed, something changed. I started to notice details that I had previously ignored: his overwhelming smile, the confidence that shone through his manner. I found myself observing him when he was at home, looking for excuses to talk to him. I tried to repress those thoughts, convincing myself that they were just manifestations of family affection. But every time I saw him, the beating of my heart betrayed very different emotions, emotions that I tried in vain to ignore. Matteo also seemed to seek my company more than necessary, with those looks that lingered too long and words full of a strange tension. One evening, when we found ourselves alone at home, Alessio was away on business and the girls were out with friends. We sat on the sofa to watch a film. The atmosphere was relaxed, but full of a subtle and vibrant energy that seemed to fill every corner of the room. Our hands touched by chance, a light but electrifying contact, like a shock that went through me. I felt my breathing become ragged, and when our eyes met, there was something undeniable between us. In that moment, everything else vanished. I felt drawn towards him as if by an irresistible force. His lips sought mine with a sweetness that left me breathless. The kiss was intense, full of passion, and a desire repressed for too long. It was as if, in that instant, the whole world had dissolved, and we were surrounded by a storm of overwhelming emotions. That night marked the beginning of our clandestine relationship. I knew it was deeply wrong, and yet I couldn't stop. With Matteo, I felt alive, desired as I hadn't felt for years. We met secretly whenever possible, stealing moments of intimacy when others were away from home. It was as exciting as it was devastating. Guilt consumed me, but passion continued to dominate. I wish I could say I found the strength to put an end to that madness, but that wouldn't be the truth. Our relationship had been going on for months, and it was like a spiral from which I couldn't escape. Every time I decided to call it quits, one look from him was enough to make me change my mind. I told myself it would be the last time, but it never was. Meanwhile, the weight of the guilt became unbearable. I saw Alessio, my husband, unaware of everything, who continued to smile at me and treat me with the same love as always. My daughter spoke affectionately about Matteo without suspecting anything, and I knew I was destroying everything we had built. Matteo seemed less upset. For him it was a dangerous game, an exciting adventure. Sometimes I wondered if he really had feelings for me, or if I was just a trophy, the mature woman he had managed to conquer. But when we were together, all doubts vanished. The lies, however, piled up. I made excuses, non-existent commitments. I said I was going out with friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Matteo pretended to study in the library. We were trapped in a parallel world of half-truths and secrets. One evening, while we were in my study, we heard the front door open. Alessio had returned from work early. Panic overwhelmed us. Matteo hid in the closet, while I tried to compose myself. Those minutes were interminable. I felt my heart beating so loudly that I feared Alessio could hear it. After that episode, I realized that we had to be more cautious. We started meeting outside the house, in a small apartment. That place became our secret refuge, away from prying eyes. But the tension was growing. Every ring of the phone made me jump, fearing that the truth had come out. Matteo, on the other hand, seemed to find danger exciting. as if risk made everything more intense. One day, my sister called me worried. He had noticed changes in Matteo's behavior and feared that he was having problems at university or was hanging out with bad company. I lied to her, saying I hadn't noticed anything strange, but her concern accentuated my guilt. Meanwhile, my marriage was suffering. Alessio sensed that something was wrong. He often asked me if I was happy, if there was something I didn't want to tell him. I downplayed it, attributing everything to the menopause. But I saw that he wasn't convinced. My daughters, now adults, were also beginning to suspect. I felt watched, as if everyone could read the truth on my face. One evening, after a meeting with Matteo, I returned home and found Alessio sitting in the dark in the living room. He was waiting for me. In a serious tone, he only said, "We need to talk." At that moment, I knew my life was about to change forever. My heart was pounding as I sat down in front of him. For a moment, I thought about confessing everything, about freeing myself from the weight that has been oppressing me for months. But fear took over. "Julia," Alessio began in a calm voice, "I've seen you distant and worried for weeks. Is there something wrong at work? Or is there anyone else? Have you ever wondered what you would be willing to risk to pursue a forbidden passion? Write in the comments what you would do in Julia's place." I felt my blood freeze in my veins. How did he suspect? I thought I was being so careful, or at least I thought. I denied it forcefully. "Maybe I'm just stressed," I say, making up problems at work, a midlife crisis, anything to hide the truth. He listens to me in silence, then takes my hands. "Julia, whatever is happening, we can face it together, but don't lie to me." His words hit me like a punch. The love and trust in his eyes were unbearable. That night I couldn't sleep, tormented by guilt. The next day I called Matteo. We had to talk. We met in our usual apartment, but this time there was no passion in our looks, only concern. "Matteo," I said, "we can't go on like this. We are destroying our family." He looked at me with those eyes that had made me lose my mind months before. "I know," he replied with a sigh, "but I can't imagine my life without you." For a moment I wavered. It was so easy to get lost in those feelings, to forget everything else. But that time I remained firm in my decision. "We have to finish this, Matteo, for the good of all." It wasn't an easy conversation. We cried. We hugged one last time. But in the end, we agreed that it was the right thing to do. Getting back to normal was difficult. I felt like I was playing a part, pretending to be the perfect wife and mother I had once been. Alessio noticed that something was wrong, but seemed relieved that at least I was trying to mend our relationship. Matteo moved to another city to finish university. He told his family that he wanted to have a study experience abroad. Nobody suspected anything. Months passed, and slowly things seemed to return to normal. But inside me, nothing was the same anymore. I felt empty, torn between the relief of having done the right thing and the regret for what I had lost. One evening, about a year after our relationship ended, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Matteo. "Julia," he said, his voice cracking with emotion, "I know I shouldn't call you, but I can't forget you." I felt my heart speed up. Old feelings came back to the surface. For a moment, I thought about telling him to come to me, to start all over again. But then I thought about Alessio, about my daughters, about the trust I was slowly rebuilding. "I'm sorry, Matteo," I replied, "but it's better if we don't talk anymore." I ended the call and burst into tears. Alessio found me like this, sobbing on the sofa. I didn't tell him the truth, but I opened my heart to him like I hadn't done in years. That night we talked for hours, rediscovering parts of ourselves that we thought were lost. Over the next few months, I worked hard to rebuild my marriage and relationships with my daughters. It wasn't easy. There were days in which the thought of Matteo came back forcefully, in which I wondered what would have happened if. But every time I pushed those thoughts back, I started therapy without revealing the real reason for my depression, but trying to work on myself, to understand what had pushed me to cheat. One day, about 2 years after the end of my relationship with Matteo, my sister called me excitedly. Matteo had become engaged to a girl he met at university. Hearing that news brought a dull ache to my chest, but also a sense of relief. Maybe we could finally move on with our lives. Family life resumed its course. My daughters grew up. One got married, the other focused on her career. Alessio and I rediscovered the joy of being together, of planning our future. But the secret remained, buried in my heart. Sometimes I woke up at night, tormented by memories and guilt. I wondered if I would ever have to confess everything to Alessio, if that secret would poison our relationship forever. 5 years after the end of my relationship with Matteo, the family reunited for the wedding of my niece, Matteo's sister. It was the first time I saw him again in a long time. He was there with his girlfriend, now wife. Our eyes met for a moment. There was a mix of indecipherable emotions in his eyes. Then he smiled, a kind but distant smile. At that moment, I understood that it was really over. That night, when I got home, I made a decision. I woke up Alessio and told him we needed to talk. With my heart pounding, I began to tell everything. I told him everything, from beginning to end, without omitting anything. Alessio listened to me in silence, his face a mask of pain and disbelief. When I finished, he was silent for what seemed like an eternity. Then he got up and left the room without saying a word. For days we lived like strangers in the same house. Alessio slept in the guest room. He avoided looking me in the eyes. Our daughters noticed something was wrong, but we didn't tell them anything. A week after my confession, Alexei came to me. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you completely," he said, "but I want to try. For us. For our family." It was the beginning of a long and painful healing journey. Alessio and I undertook couples therapy, a journey that forced us to relearn to trust each other and communicate authentically. There were times when I thought we couldn't do it, that the damage I had caused was too great. But slowly, day after day, we rebuilt our relationship. Today, 10 years after that fateful confession, Alessio and I are still together. Our marriage is not perfect, but it is honest and strong. Betrayal remains a scar in our past, but it no longer defines our present or our future. Matteo now lives in another city, with his wife and their 2 children. I rarely see him at family gatherings, and our relationship is cordial, but distant. Sometimes I wonder if he too thinks back to that period of our lives, if he feels regrets or remorse. As for me, I have learned to forgive myself, even if the guilt has not completely disappeared. It is a constant reminder of the value of loyalty, honesty, and true love. If I could go back, I would make different choices, without a doubt. But I can't change the past. I can only move forward, grateful for the second chance I was given, and determined to never waste it again. My story is not an example to follow, but I hope it can serve as a warning. Betrayal may seem exciting. It may make you feel alive like you haven't felt in years, but the price you pay is very high. You risk losing everything that really matters in life: trust, respect, sincere love. If there is one lesson I learned from this experience, it is that communication is key in a marriage. If I had spoken openly with Alessio about my doubts, my insecurities, perhaps I would never have come to betray him. Now, looking back at the woman I was, I feel a mixture of compassion and disappointment. I understand her motivations, her loneliness, her desire to feel desired. But I can't justify his actions. Betrayal is never the answer. If you are unhappy in your marriage, talk to your partner, seek help, go to therapy, work on your problems. But don't cheat. The pain it will cause yourself and the people you love is not worth it. Today, at 55, I finally feel at peace with myself. I have an honest and loving relationship with my husband. I am close to my daughters, and I'm starting to enjoy my grandchildren, the real ones. This time life is not perfect, but it is authentic, and this authenticity is worth more than any passing thrill. My story ends here. It's not a fairy tale happy ending, but it's an honest ending. And honesty, I have learned, is the foundation of all true love. If you want to receive new videos of the series, write "I want the sequel" in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to receive a preview of future publications. Thank you